That's right, and this time around, B will not have access to his deli. Jess still gets to sit on the French, but outside that, a few switch rules. We're going to have Gentle Butzer playing as the English, and then B, one of his most infamous civs, going to be picking the Mongols.
And we have been theory crafting before this game how this is going to work out, whether we're going to see some slower starts from B and Jessie, maybe even Mongol trade, or whether this is going to be a tower rush with the Mongols possibly. Remains to be seen. But one thing we already know is that the starting location here for B is not spectacular. That is a rather underwhelming town center.
Oh,
kind of unlucky map spawn for him.
Yeah, it's not exactly the town center's underwhelming as much as the stone spawns that make it underwhelming. It's so far away. Like, if you want to actually if you go north, there's a nice tight grouping of things you could drop a TC next to. Except for wood. Wood is kind of missing in this area, which is why you had to go for this maybe unfortunate play. The unfortunate nature to it is if there was an Uvu spawn close to the front, he could have actually just went for a Rax play, and look how close he'd be to rushing Jess.
Yeah, the town center placements are actually very close. Wow. This kind of reshapes the meta for the entire game, because the distance to cover is minimal, and take a look at how Jess's gold mines are located. Double forward gold for a French player. Against a Mongol player with such a small distance, this is a nightmare for the French player.
Is this hard-coded into the game for these type of matchups? If French and Mongol in-game, French player must have gold spawn towards them. I feel like I see this every time. It's kind of crazy. And in this situation, it could be very unfortunate for her, because I wouldn't be surprised if B makes a move on it. So far, he's just remained complacent. He hasn't made a choice to invest. In fact, I think he might just be going for like wheelbarrow and a slower start. If anything, yeah, looking at the fact that Ger's researching, I think this is a wheelbarrow opening, so no aggression out of B. Maybe that fast castle age is what he's aiming for that we talked about.
You know why we don't have any aggression from B? Vodka has been probably screaming in front of his computer, even pointing towards the top. It's because B and Jessie are teammates. They are close to each other, but they're not opponents, they're teammates.
What was wrong with my brain that whole time? I don't want to talk about it.
It's not just you. It was me as well.
You're right. This makes more sense. You know what it was? Okay, so hear me out. I've been begging the devs. I really, really want this. I actually want closer spawning like starting maps with resources behind the players. Smartly designed though, right? Like not so you can just Mongol outpost rush them in 2 seconds. Maybe like some cool choke points or whatever. But something along those lines, because we just don't have it in AOE4 at all, right? The closest we've got is mountain clearing, and we don't talk about mountain clearing. It's for a very good reason.
All right. That kind of changes the game, because that kind of means that Jessie actually has really good gold mines at the back here, even a good stone mine. And for B, he's actually pretty close. That Mongol player. Yeah. Honestly, that's a very good positioning for B and Jessie, and it actually adds a new dimension to the game I didn't even think about so far for 2v2s. It's the fact that with Mongols, you can try to be a little closer to your teammate than you could have when you have just normal spawning civilizations like French and English. So the distance to cover between the two of you in case you need to help each other out is actually much smaller.
Yeah, so one thing I'm going to know about this, though, like it's a back spawning stone placement. The gold isn't that close that he needs to invest the Uvu. This spear rush is directed at Artie, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't want to see him invest much into this, because he's up against an English player, and he's not blocking that English player, which means that Lombos will come out. I'm hoping B is using this as a kind of a bait factor, so the English player immediately rushes for Lombos, and then either B pivots into Horseman, or he thinks about maybe trying to go towards that castle age we talked about earlier.
Yeah, could be. It also is probably the concept here is that B is going to try to push Donati if Donati is expected to go for Horseman here with the deli. So the first couple of Horsemen will have a tough time defending his base against harassment, especially if there is apparently a tower rush here. Where did you guys come from?
He was knocking on the door a while ago. He ran over quite early. The spears are going to get there in time, but the problem here, remember, it's the deli player you're going after here. What did we say? He will commit the villagers, he'll pull a scholar to heal them, and you'll do no damage. But so far, Artie is just kind of shrugging this off. Only 3 villagers invested to defend this isn't going to work out, especially considering that B did bring 2 villagers to construct this.
Yeah, but it's the delay game. As you said, B could easily just use this as something that slows down Donati so he can nail a castle age. And keep in mind that this also forces Gentle Butzer to bring over a couple of longbows. They, in fact, are already arriving, and this kind of opens up the chance for Jessie to either raid Gentle Butzer or possibly just intercept those reinforcements crossing the map.
Yeah, well, what I was trying to highlight there is, like, Artie didn't bring a lot of villagers to try and defend that, right? He only brought 3. But now it makes sense. Like, it was all a bait to keep B invested until Butz's longbows arrived. And now B, it kind of feels cumbersome. You've invested in 5 spearmen. You've idled 2 villagers. You didn't get your outpost up. I think you lost about half the value of it because of the torch damage coming through. It doesn't look that good, right? And that whole idea of B now rushing Castle Age might get very difficult, because if Jess has to kind of buff this on her own, it's going to be incredibly difficult to do so, considering that B's only commitment, his only assistance, is mass spearmen up against 2 civs that can comfortably build archers.
He's now trying to tower that sacred site here just to prevent Deli from capping it, but longbows are chasing relentlessly, and there's some good teamwork here between Don Artie and Gentle Butzer. Longbows themselves not having a lot of line of sight, but they are assisted by the scouts, so these 2 villagers, they're completely useless right now, and as you said, it's a big investment. Ooh, look at that though!
Oh, hello, what the pinch? Oh my god, Butzer wasn't even paying attention. He just lost 3 villagers to that.
He just got Butzered.
And he got blitzed out of the map. I mean, honestly, he only kills, what, 2 spearmen for that? And the 2 villagers running away for B are still alive. And also, something to keep in mind is, like, B, I was a bit worried that he went wheelbarrow early and that it was kind of a wasted investment. But it kept those 2 villagers alive, right? So they're going to get back to base a bit quicker and extract. And now, because he extracted value sniping 3 English villagers, it makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, especially because Don Artie, he isn't really fielding a lot of army, only has 1 horseman on the playing field. Went with the blacksmith early, but that means that Jess has a free real estate out there. She has already managed to snipe 1 villager, and she's going to continue to harass those berries.
Yeah, she's almost sniped the scouts as well. It's very important. You don't want to lose scouts this early on such a big map. You won't know what's happening or where to go. And that's also incredibly worrying when you're running a static comp. You know, this is probably going to be spear archers from both Artie and Butzer. Maybe we see some horsemen getting mixed in mass from Artie. We see it is actually going to be his opening. My concern is whether you can get enough horses here. Considering your delay getting them to the field, like, you're already being doubled up by the knights.
Yeah, that's the problem, right? And do keep in mind that B is likely aiming for Castle Age here.
This is so good from him. It's a weird kind of thing to watch, is longbows that are meant to counter spears getting wiped out by spears. But the amazing thing is, like, B, he's just extracting maximum value out of the remaining spears. He's not investing in more. You can see there's still Dark Age units, right? He hasn't teched them up at all, has no interest in that. But so far, he's exchanged better value in terms of killing longbows and villagers than he's lost in spears. And a big part of that isn't just the buff damage we talked about from 6 to 7 damage, it's also the change to the charge. It triggers at a smaller range now, but once it starts triggering, the duration lasts an extra 2 or 3 seconds, which allows you to always gap close on longbows.
Yeah, it looks like he actually decided to go with the hardened spearman now, because he's committing to feudal age aggression, now fielding a lot of archers. They kind of feel the blood in the water. They've done some damage, and they can probably just contain the Delhi player inside his base at this point, cut him off from the sacred sites.
A slow reaction from Jess there. Maybe she could have cut them off. That would have been 2 freebies, but decent damage done. And something to keep in mind is, like, he upgraded the spearman to harden because it's so cheap. When you have at least 4 or 5 spearmen, it's kind of worth it. If he had less, I don't think he would have done it, because if you see, B still isn't building more units. He's going for Castle Age very clearly here. And the cool thing is Jess is fielding so much aggression, and he's done so much with the spear. Well, okay, ignore me. He drops a double archer range. I was watching the top left. He'd only actually been building spears so far, so it looks like B is going to choose to double down on archers instead. He could have went either option here, though. Like, that's a heavy investment. He just went up to 9 archers.
Yeah, as I said, they feel the blood in the water. They've done some damage. The risk they run is that B was very much delayed adding those archers. So, at the end of the day, if you look at the overall military count, now it's looking better and better for Don Artie and his teammate. And we're starting to reach that critical mass of horsemen where this force really becomes scary, already supported by a couple of scholars as well.
Yeah, at first I wondered if they spotted an opportunity and that's why he doubled down on archers, but actually I think this is them just being forced to. Right, I think what's happened here is they're now heavily threatened by what they're seeing out of Artie and Butzer. So if B doesn't contribute, then all these knights die, and you end up losing full map control against the Delhi. So it's not as much maybe the most optimal choice that he wanted to make. It's one he has to because of the nature of the battlefield right now. Clash coming out. Archers are going to start sniping down those spearmen. Need to wrap around with the knights here, but Jess is hesitant because the spears could give pursuit quickly. The issue they have here is any unit they do not finish off is going to be healed by those scholars.
Yeah, and those knights, I don't think they have chivalry. So unlike the previous matchup that B and Jessie played, it's going to be much more difficult to keep those low HP knights alive. And those are price units. Many of them already have taken some damage.
It's kind of a tough one, right? Because now you feel like if you back away from the mid-map, you are just going to allow those skulls to cap, and then you're going to fall behind. So they have to take a good fight here, but good stand ground coming. Artie baiting them in. Lombo's somewhat exposed, but the Knights have to dive deep, and that means they're being poked down fast here. Skulls are going to sustain. Knight count is in trouble. Archer count not looking like it's going to carry the fight, and B cannot do anything to assist. Jess is going to lose the entire Knight battalion. I say that, if the Lombos turn and finish them off, the Scholars are still keeping these guys alive. I mean, that is still overall a decent exchange. It looks kind of debated, like Jess and B got a lot out of that, but over half the Knights died. And that's 240 resources per unit.
Yeah, B and Jessie took the battlefield, but the cost to pay was massive. We talked about this. You want to keep those Knights alive, and Jessie is down to just 4 Knights, make it 3 in a second. All that army was gone, and yeah, they have nothing to contest the playing field with now.
It's the fact they're not sniping the skulls quick enough because the Lombos have to be addressed. So like these Lombos, it looks so bad, right? It looked like they were going to lose the fight, but then when you look at the end of this, you have 3 Knights left over for Jess. That's the entirety of the army. She hasn't got more than that. B lost most of the Archer count. At the end of the day, if you look at the top, you can see Artie and Butzer still have double the military count. And most of that is actual military, only 5 are scholars.
Yeah, it's almost triple the army count now. And now the Longbows, they will have a chance to harass B, because remember that his woodline is on the front. Goldmine also very much exposed over here. So chance to harass that or just shift towards Jessie. Now remember, Jessie's gold mines are relatively safe, but right now I just feel like they have nothing to contest the map with, so Artie is going to have 2 or 3 sacred sites under his control. And off the back of this, the English player was also able to start setting up a farming eco, so even sustainability is on the side of Artie's team.
Bro, Butzer's kind of carrying this now. I mean, Artie's doing a good job of front-lining and buying time. I think those skulls came in clutch in that fight. It's the Lombo count. Like, that's the thing I was always looking through in the middle of that fight in the center. It looks kind of jibby. You look, you go, oh yeah, you know, like Jess and B have more units standing here. Then you always look at the military pop cap at the top. You look at the premium fact of these Lombos and how many Knights die. And, you know, if we could actually, like, if we were able to show you, like, destroyed value on both sides, Jess and B have lost a lot more. And now they're going to fall further behind because they had to take that bad fight. They had to try and hold, because if you don't, this happens. And then that tick-in comes for Artie. All of a sudden, it's not just Lombos you have to worry about. It's Artie just reinvesting all that gold into military power elsewhere.
Yeah, and it's not just the gold income for Artie. One of the things that he has done is also take the berries of his teammates. His food income is still spectacular. And you see, now his escalation is going to be rapid. Jessie and B trying to stop this one. This is a good fight for them, though.
They're rapping right now. They're going to get a good strike here. Lombos are slow to move away. A few spears were laid in, but it feels like there's not enough spears here to overwhelm the Knights. They needed those walls complete. Artie couldn't get it up, though. The body blocks were brilliant, and as a result, they had no retreat point to funnel into. So now Lombos have to back away, and as they do so, the Knights are going to get value. Horsemen do arrive in time to slow down the aggression, but it's not going to stop it, because these Horsemen cannot match these Knights in equal numbers.
Yeah, Artie realized that. He knows that that group of Longbows is essentially dead. No need to force a fight out there. Just regroup back at home. And for first time in quite a while, Jessie and B do have the numerical advantage. This is exactly the momentum that they needed. They need to decap the sacred sites and actually start doing some damage with those Knights, because we haven't really seen a single raid by those Knights so far.
Yeah, but this is worst case scenario for Artie and Butzer. Look at the military count. When you play Delhi, you're not meant to be parallel on military, right? You're meant to be ahead by a decent margin, and it's meant to escalate. It's not. If anything, you're falling behind, and now you're going to be exploited for it. The Scholars out in the middle of the map are going to start getting sniped down. 2 of them should be falling. Pricey investment here if they do go down as well. Knights are going to be pushed back just in time by the Horseman Spears. Remember, there's still a lot of Archers here, and a lot of Knights as well, so they'll be the front line. I'll make sure that the Archers can't be accessed, but with lack of spears, these Knights are not dying fast. And there may be too many Archers for the Scholars to stand and heal.
Yeah, Longbows are slowly trickling in here, picking off the Archers. Scholars standing and fighting, but feels a little too few here for Artie. Knights still alive, although most of them are now gone, and Horseman reinforcements still coming in.
I mean, there's barely any Horsemen, though. There's no Skulls anymore. That's the thing you have to notice for that Lidakor. Look at all those guys wearing dresses dead on the back line. It's not Scots here to play the bagpipes. That is the Scholars. And with them gone, they have no frontline factor. And just a few knights will tear apart the trickle reinforcements.
Yeah, Butzer is forced to invest into Spearmen here as well, but those will be picked apart by the archers. And it's once again the difference between the heavy cavalry and the light cavalry. The archers could contribute fairly well against the light cavalry coming from Donati, whereas for Butzer, those longbows didn't really do much against knights. Now, one overlooked factor is that Donati, off the back of this, went to Castle Age, so now he can also field his own lancers.
He needs to field them faster, because this is going to escalate very quickly at this stage. I wonder if B or Jess considers going up. Jess is playing pocket ecos. They need to get damage done. If she has to retreat because they lose map control, she's not going to have food. She's not going to have access to anything. And that's where Don and Butzer might have a way back in this game. But first, they have to survive.
Yeah, and B and Jessie knows very well that Donati is in Castle Age, so you can do two things here. Just assume that Donati doesn't have a lot of army because he invested his resources into aging up and just wipe out Gentle Butzer. Or you could go for Donati and just cut him off from resources, make it impossible for him to field knights.
I think you pressure Butzer. You just need to be careful about the way you do it. I like this choice before he escalates as well, because he's still in just feudal age, right? So you know that Artie, because he went greedy, he's not going to participate yet. So you kind of have to deal with this army, because otherwise, we saw what happens on the defense. Butzer can keep coming back in with his lombos. It's just difficult, right? Because when you try to dive English players, that attack speed aura is going to trigger. And that's going to make it even more difficult to get good trades.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, what?
Look at that.
Artie, no. This is not the place to go. And remember, that's enough archers to get through textiles, so plenty of villagers are going to be going down here. Artie, desperate for food, gets caught reaching.
Yeah, he went aggressive out there. He's playing high upsize, trying to just secure all those berry patches, but didn't expect those archers there. Loses a dozen villagers. Villager count is still dead even, at least, so this may have not been as bad as it looked, but it still definitely doesn't help on Artie.
Well, cheeky attempt by Artie. B, he's going to start sniping, though. You cocky son of a gun. He'll snipe him afterwards. I mean, but this is the problem, right? The knights are still a good answer to the lancers as long as they charge. And if there's no spears there to defend, they will charge. They'll keep the aggression up. Behind this, I wouldn't be surprised if B is going to be teching up. In fact, yeah, he's underway right now. And he still has such a big archer army to fight with in the base of his opponent. So they won't necessarily be expecting this castle up from the Mongols.
Yeah, for sure. It's the power of the double production out there for B, plus efficient Mongol economy even. And as you said, those purple knights will still hold well against the Castle Age force of Donati. Looks like Donati and Gentle Butzer will be able to take this fight here. In fact, in a quite dominant fashion, but as you said, off the back of this, B is also in castle.
The Wololo. Artie is so good at this, man. He's so good at just applying pressure and manipulating your position. He'll just walk those relics back afterwards, but you say it's a good fight for them. I kind of don't feel like it was, right? Maybe if the purple knight player was here, but the pink knight player was here. And Jess, she maintains the numbers. Archer count is still looking good for B. He lost, what, 10 archers to cover his tech up? Totally fine.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to buy time, it was perfect. They still have to forfeit some map control. And this allows Donati to start picking up the relics as well. And do keep in mind, he has had 2 sacred sites for the whole time of this game. They never decapped that central sacred site up until now, and that was a lot of extra gold for Donati to work with.
And these knights, I mean, there's enough of them they can turn and burn if Donati stops investing lancers for a second. In fact, I don't think he has enough lancers here. He needs to be careful about this fight. If the remaining archers take out the English spears, this will backfire quickly. It looks like for now, B is going to keep backing up. He is prepping crossbows, but they're not here yet. In fact, B is trying to address Artie because he started going shamans. He's going to try to get rid of those relics favorably for B and Jess.
Yeah, look at the momentum now.
I mean, this is the thing. You can't dive anymore, right? Like, it's just lombos and a few lancers. It's very difficult to go fully in, but they are idling some of Jess eco. Jess, she's going in fully here. Past the Spearman, taking a lot of damage in the process, and in the end, only one knight gets through the lombos. She just lost the front line. They just lost everything.
Yeah, and the crossbows won't help here. Crossbows will just get picked apart by the longbows, and now the combination of lancers and longbows are substantially better than anything they can field.
So many villagers are going to be going down here. They have no defense again. I guess, like you said, the longbows can counter out the crossbows in small quantities. And Jess, it feels like panic is setting in now. And it should be, because the barbarians are knocking at your door, and they are not going away.
It is almost a 5-to-1 military ratio at this point in the favor of Donati's team. picking off the reinforcements that come in from B, and Jessie has nothing left to defend with a single knight is defending her whole base. Now the Lancers can commit, start picking off villagers, and I just don't feel like there's a way back right now for B's team.
Here we go, boys. 3 Musketeers. No, D'Artagnan! Okay, they're all gone. I think they're all gone. Wololo attempt to come out from B. His only hope. Artie was sneaking out. That isn't going to work, and they'll just begin the torch down. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Butzer invests in a cheeky bit of siege engineering right now to make this faster. It feels like B is the only one who can save them because Jess has nothing left.
But even if B saves Jess, what is going to be left from the base of Jess? That's a big question. I mean, we're still looking at 100 army combined for Don Artie's team as opposed to just 20. And most of that army for B is just crossbows. They'll get picked apart in a second by those longbows. Their army is just not suitable to take this fight anymore.
There will be a house left. 1 house. That's it. That's all I'm giving it. It's pretty rough. I mean, this came down to that fight in the defense, though. It was going to be a tough one, but I think what happened there is Jess, she thought she could quickly just blitz through into the longbows for maximum damage, but she ran past spears on the flank. I'm not sure if she noticed it. So Butzer had about 5 or 6 spears constantly stabbing in the Wololo attempt. Oh my god, the ships! I've been there too many times before, dude. Artie and B in a game, you knew it was going to be entertaining. It's not going to go off. That was maybe the one way they could kind of get back into this, but even then, I'm not even sure it would have been good enough. Because they're done with Jess. They're going to be.
Yeah, at this point, all that B can hope for is that he can somehow 2v1 this, but for that he would need a Wololo, like a gigantic Wololo. That is unlikely to happen. Outnumbered 5-1. He's not going to get overrun. Oh, the
but
Shamans,
yeah, like, back
though.
to that fight. I mean, honestly, the Shamans, I don't think they're going to do enough here. This is not
me
Scholars,
neither.
remember. They're like, they have 90 health. Look how many Lombos there are. Like, maybe if Shamans could have a shield upgrade. He's got 1 Wololo in a dream. But it's Artie. And Artie's going to be quick on the micros, so he'll just shift away. So they're done with Jess. Now it's playtime with B. He can leave his base, but there's no way to retreat after that. I'm surprised they haven't GG'd out just yet. They're just praying that a Wololo works.
Yeah, but it likely won't. Now B is going to get picked off, and looks like he's no longer microing, so he's likely just busy typing GG here because there is nothing left to do, nowhere left to go. His forces are going to get picked off, and there is nothing left for them to play with.
It's kind of that baited feeling like, we killed the Lancers, guys. We've done it. We can keep going. Yeah, but what about all those longbows? Those longbows are a prop, and now there's men-at-arms. So finally they'll call it. B and Jess, they were off to a good start at the upper bracket, but now it's time for them to dip lower than Christina Milan.
Terrific game here from both sides, really, here. Actually, it's only Jessie tapping out. B is still in this game, but I don't know why. He's with 0 military, so...
Are we just role-playing
there it is.
French in World War II? No, okay, we're joining in. Finally, it's going to get called, so it is going to be going the way of Don Artie and Butzer. And what a great back-and-forth game this was. Very deceptive as well. A lot of those clashes in the center kind of look like they're going one way, but when you look at the overall military pop cap and what's coming behind, it's deceitful. I think one disadvantage that the English have is how slow these longbows are to reinforce, but I love the way that Artie was always able to buy enough time off the Scholar healing and his composition of units to ensure that Butzer could arrive.
Yeah, it was a terrific game, as you said, very much back and forth. The remarkable thing was that, as you said, it really came down to timings. Don Artie went for an aggressive Castle Age. He almost got overrun by the forces of Jessie and B, but then they managed to hold it off. Just barely. Remember that Jessie and B were diving into the base of General Butzer, but in the end, they hold it off, and Don Artie was able to capitalize on that Castle Age. Response from B was his own castle as well, but he kind of had to sacrifice momentum for that, and that meant that Jessie got overrun.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I felt like the communication was looking really good from B and Jess. You can see how in sync they were. And at first, like, it kind of seems like, is Artie and Butzer on the same wavelength? But I think when you look back to that early game, it's not just because Don is saying it in the chat. Like, when I think about it more, the way they addressed the outpost rush, because apparently, like, we got in the chat, Artie saying, you know, he said to Butzer, rush your landmark because, you know, I'm going to get rushed by B. I know it's coming. That's why he only invested 3 villages. Like, both teams were in sync here, and I think it's why we got a very close series. I love the fact that there's clearly a lot of trust going back and forth between the 2 team members. It's not just the pro saying something and the other just having to give the lead. Sometimes you have to put your fate in the hands of your teammate, and that's something we've been seeing from both of these teams.